Hello, everybody, and welcome to Coffee Catch Ups. Hope you are all doing amazing and having a fantastic week so far. And you are getting out there and smashing all of your goals, whether it's in your property game, whether it's in investing, whether it's in your personal life. I hope it is all going amazing for you and you are just dominating. Today is a great opportunity because I'm excited to start to talk about a topic which is really important in so many aspects. So I'm going to be talking today about due diligence. It's a word that we hear a lot, especially in the property industry, but it's a word that's thrown around a lot in many different forms. And I'd like to really go through and explain the due diligence element in terms of everyday life, in terms of property, in terms of what we need to be looking at when we are essentially doing our due diligence. So before I go any further, let's jump in and actually go through the actual definition that we have for due diligence. I've written it down here: an investigation, audit, or review performed to confirm facts or details of a matter under consideration. So essentially, due diligence is your investigation. It's your own way of finding out whether the element that you're going to buy, the element that you're going to invest in, the element that you're going to, whatever it is, do, and I'll go through a few different options soon, is right for you. It fits it in terms of what you're trying to achieve. So let's go through where can we actually find due diligence, because like I said before, we find it in property. And property is obviously one that is very important to run your due diligence. And I'm going to go through exactly in detail the elements to consider with due diligence and what you need to make sure you're looking out for and what you need to, when you need to be doing your due diligence for a property transaction. But what about everyday life? What about everyday life in terms of, I don't know, let's say that you decide that you are going to buy a new pair of shoes, for example. You're going to run due diligence because you're going to go, okay, well, I love these shoes, but maybe I can get them cheaper if I go and have a look at some other stores. There is your due diligence. It's an investigation. Or maybe I'd like the blue version rather than the green version. There we go. We're having our due diligence. Another one that we often end up doing due diligence on is purchasing of a car, for example. On the weekend, we went and test drove a car in the process of buying my wife a new car. This here is doing our due diligence by going to test drive it. Now, by test driving this car, we are running an investigation whether it fits us. We've also done an investigation on other cars as well. We've driven them, we've looked at prices, what you get for your car. So it's really important when you're looking at your due diligence that you run all elements of whether the element is right for you. The other time that we come across due diligence is very much within using any company or service. For example, you decide that you would maybe like to take on a property education or learn from a company in terms of creating wealth. Well, then you may be looking at companies like Wealth Mentor, but you're going to do investigation into it. You're probably going to come across Coffee Catch Up and have a bit of a watch of some of these and decide whether you would be wanting to work alongside a company like Wealth Mentor. But at the same time, if you are looking at actually purchasing a business, if you are going into business, or due diligence is really important in this element because you're going to be doing all the groundwork, all the investigation as into whether the business is right for you. Elements like, obviously going through the financials, the fine-tooth comb in terms of making sure that whatever the current vendor is putting across to you is relative to whatever it is that you're looking to purchase in terms of the business. You're also going to look into things like the database. Is the database relevant? What's the usage of the database? How much they're getting in terms of open rates for a database? How active is that database that you're looking to purchase? What is the IP that comes along, the intellectual property with any purchase of a potential business? Elements to certainly consider there. The other one, which I think is very important, and this comes down to being an investor that looks at the next stages, looks at what is the potential or what is the possibilities of an investment, is what is the future potential? The future potential in terms of what do you have the capabilities of changing within the business to become a better, more valuable asset in terms of your investment. So really due diligence comes down to a well-rounded investigation. I use that word a lot into whether it's going to be a viable investment for you. But property is really the one that I'd like to spend a bit of time on, because property due diligence is probably the one that we come across a lot. I mean, there's even clauses that you can put within the sale and purchase agreement, which is a due diligence clause. But when it comes to due diligence, there's three elements I'd like to consider. When do you do due diligence? What do you actually do in terms of your due diligence into the purchase? And lastly, who do you engage in order to run the due diligence on the assets that you're looking to buy, in this case, property? So let's start off with when. So when would you run due diligence? This all depends on the way that you are looking to buy the property, the type of sales campaign that the vendor has run. If the vendor has run an auction, you are going to have to do your due diligence prior to the auction, meaning that by the time you turn up to purchase the property, you have already done all your investigation. If, for example, the property is sold by a set price or by negotiation, you can actually put an offer in on a property and have it subject to some sort of element of due diligence. That subject then gives you the ability to get the property under contract, which means that it has conditions attached to it. So it's not unconditional, it's a conditional contract. This gives you the period to run your due diligence to work out whether any of the conditions that you've put within the contract, again, these conditions relate back to your due diligence, are elements that you need to investigate. And I'll go through what you need to investigate soon. So really there's two elements in terms of when and what you would do with your due diligence. The other element that we come into is maybe a tender or a set date of sale. In elements like this, you may want to consider doing as much due diligence as you can so your offer can be as clean as possible, because you will be competing with other offers. So certainly something to consider in that regard. Now let's get to what we actually do in terms of due diligence. For all my advanced students, I give them a checklist they work through in terms of once they've got a property under contract to make sure that they're running their due diligence correctly and making sure that the property works for them. Things to consider when running your due diligence. First of all, the numbers. All elements in terms of the numbers, do they stack up? We're talking about value. Is the purchase price correct in terms of what we're looking to purchase? Rent. Do we have rental appraisals? Do we make sure that we've got the right idea of what rent we're going to get? Value as well, looking at post-reno value if you're looking to do a renovation. Again, due diligence on what is the renovation going to cost you. It's really important to have a well-rounded idea as to all the elements in terms of the numbers, values, renos, and also obviously what you're going to get rental-wise. All these elements come into it to ensure that you're running numbers and these properties are hitting your buying rules when you're purchasing them. The other element to consider is the different reports that you can get in terms of your due diligence. You can get reports, building reports, you can get MEF reports, you can get valuation reports. There's different reports that you will need to look at in terms of your purchase. Do they fit for the type of property that you're buying? Do they fit for the due diligence that you're looking to run? These are things that you'll look to engage, and there will probably be a cost attached to it because you're going to have to engage professionals to do this. But engaging professionals is vital, which brings me to the who. Who will you need in terms of getting your due diligence completed? Because there is a number of elements that you'll need to get sorted. One of them being finance. Finance is a very big part of your due diligence. Most contracts actually fall over due to finance. So finance needs to be approved part of your due diligence process. The other element to consider is the titles. Now for finance, we're going to look to use our mortgage broker or our banking managers, whoever we are working with, in terms of getting the finance in place so that you're certain that you can actually buy the property. Because the last thing we want to be doing is actually going unconditional without having the ability to actually buy the property. In terms of titles, this comes back down to your solicitors going over your titles, make sure that the footprint's correct, make sure that whatever fits on there, and make sure there's no covenants that you are not aware of, and that you have a clean title in terms of what you are purchasing. Other elements of your power team come back to making sure that you are getting your rental appraisals by a trusted rental appraisal, valuations if you're needing to get your valuations done, going to your valuers. So all the elements in terms of running your due diligence comes down to making sure that all elements fit for the property. Now, there's something else that I'd like to kind of wrap back around to, And that comes down to the type of person running the due diligence. Because the person who runs the due diligence is going to have a different, appetite for wanting to do more and more due diligence. I'll give you an example. And I'm going to use a little bit of a cliche here. But let's say, for example, we've got an engineer that's looking at buying a property. Their due diligence is probably going to be quite specific. They're going to want to know every single detail in terms of running their analysis on the property, their due diligence. Not a bad thing, but the key element is make sure they don't get paralysis by analysis. Make sure that if it fits the buying rules, they're jumping in and purchasing it. The other personality that we may come across is someone who's very driven and wants to just succeed at all costs. Well, they may go and slightly skip some of the due diligence process because, it's minor, it'll be fine, we'll just figure it out later. No, that's not how it works. We work through the due diligence process to make sure we don't miss anything, make sure that the property that we're purchasing really fits within what we're looking to achieve in terms of buying rules, within looking to achieve our financial freedom, looking to achieve, in the end, the wealth that you and your family deserve. The other elements in terms of personality, we may have people that are just there to have fun, and they're going to call up all their power team members, and they're probably going to have a chat about what happened on the weekend, but they're not going to get the exact details. Make sure again that they are coming back down to your due diligence checklist. As I say, with some of our advanced students, we work through a pretty specific due diligence checklist to make sure that nothing is missed, to make sure that they're continuing to buy the right properties and be able to get ahead with their finance and their investing. Now, in terms of getting ahead and growing and becoming the best version in terms of investing, we do actually have a webinar coming up this Thursday. So only a couple of days away. Thank you, team, for bringing that one up. Live webinar on how to identify a good investment property. Kind of relates, I guess, to the whole due diligence process. So make sure you jump on there. It's hosted by my good friend and colleague, Kyron Goss, who will be jumping in and hosting that webinar. The guy will be going into detail in terms of how to actually run your numbers and make sure that the investment property fits correctly for you. So there's a link that's going to be popped into the chat for you guys. Make sure you click that link, jump across, and register for the webinar. It's well worth your time jumping in there. I'm sure you can miss one episode of Netflix to jump in and have a listen to Kyron and give you guys some education and keep growing your knowledge level. So for sure, jump on there. And at the end of the day, you need to keep growing. You need to keep investigating. You need to keep becoming the best version of yourself. I take my hat off to you jumping in and having a listen to this coffee catch up. And I'm sure that there'll be some elements that you'll take away that you can continue to grow and become the best version of yourself. Because at the end of the day, that is what it's all about. And being able to create wealth for you as an individual, no matter what it is that means. Because we want to become the best version of ourselves. Guys, it's been really fun talking about due diligence today, but on Thursday, I do have a really, really exciting guest joining me. So really looking forward to that one. If you would like to join me on Coffee Catch Up and have a bit of a chat, I'd love to have you on. I'm actually in discussions with a couple of people at the moment. Some actually quite famous people as well. So really looking forward to being able to lock down a time where I can get them on and have a chat. But if you would like to come on, have a chat, tell your story, I'm sure that you've got something that people would love to hear. Would love to hear from you. There's a link that we can pop in. Actually, no, we'll pop the email address across the bottom if you wouldn't mind, team, office@wealthmentor.co.nz. Click us an email or send me a direct message on Instagram or Facebook. Love to hear from you. It's been epic talking due diligence. Make sure you run your due diligence. That property needs to be right for you. That business needs to be right for you. Buying those shoes, make sure you choose the right color. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Have a wonderful afternoon. We'll see you on Thursday. And most importantly, stay awesome. See you, everybody.